So I've spent the last 2 years completing my Hero Factory collection, and after all that was done, I came to one giant conclusion. Some of these sets are significantly better than others. So now I guess I'm just gonna make a video talking about the worst Hero Factory sets. These sets will be judged upon their appearance, posability, and how well they hold up compared to the rest of the sets released in the same wave. I may think Inferno 2.0 looks stupid, but that set doesn't really have any objective problems that the rest of the 2.0s don't have. Something that will not be a factor in this list are the parts that come with the sets. Some of these sets can get pretty expensive on the aftermarket. I know goddamn well you're not paying $15 for Drill Dozer because you think that size 8 in silver looks cool. But before we get into the list, I just want to throw up a quick disclaimer. If a set you like appears on this list, then that means you have bad taste in toys, and I will relentlessly mock you if you put "I like this set" in the comment section below. So kicking off this list is Breakout Surge. While not a particularly bad set, my biggest problem with this set is its color distribution. Specifically, the excessive amount of green that it has. His arms are completely green, and he just kind of looks like he's an alien with green skin wearing a blue tank top. And some will debatably say that Nex is worse than Surge, but I think what puts Surge over Nex is the torso that LEGO decided to use for him. All these small breakout heroes, with the exception of Surge, use the narrow torso without ball joints on their shoulders. However, with Surge, LEGO decided to use the full-size torso with ball joints, and when you don't fold his arms up, there is a large gap in between his shoulders and his body. LEGO also decided to give him one hand, despite the fact that you could easily fit a hand in this blaster. Many other sets have a hand in the blaster, including Nex, which I just showed off, but for some reason, Surge, as well as a handful of others, got stuck with a nub for a hand. Overall, I think this isn't a terrible set, but it doesn't really have any traits that pop out as positive. Next up, we have Aqua Gun. Now, like Surge, there isn't really anything about Aqua Gun that sticks out as bad, or it's just he is incredibly bland. This set feels like it was designed in a couple minutes because LEGO realized that Brain Attack Wave 2 would only have 2 villains without him. Aqua Gun doesn't really have any building techniques, and he doesn't really have much that pops apart from the swords and the trans blue armor on his arm. He was also given a minor action feature, but just sticking his swords together is kind of a lame action feature. Still, there isn't really anything wrong with this set, it just doesn't do anything exceptionally cool or well. Next up is our first invasion from below entry, the Rocket Crawler. This thing feels like a simplistic set that should have been a part of a polybag instead of a $10 set, and as a matter of fact, it kinda was. The thing that lands the Rocket Crawler on the list are the limbs being 1 bone each. The reason that this is a problem is because it severely restricts the set's posability. Another thing that lands it on here are the weapons. While the stud shooter on top is pretty cool, the chainsaws are just kind of lanky and weird and just feel like LEGO wanted an excuse to make these chainsaw molds in gold. When you look at Brain Attack Wave 2, Jet Rocka kinda looks like he took most of the budget for the entire wave. The side of the jetpack is completely covered in pinholes and gaps, and this is probably the worst Hero Factory set when it comes to the issue of blue pins. Rocket pretty much doubles in size and becomes lanky for pretty much no reason. And I do mean for no reason. And while I have Rocket out of the jetpack, this jetpack has 2 major issues. 1, it can't stand up without a pilot in it, and 2, its action feature, while looking cool, can't hold like this unless you modify the set. So unless you're holding onto the set, it's gonna look like that. The only reason this set doesn't rank any lower is because it does look cool. Next up is Flyer Beast, and he makes the list simply because he is a bare bones CCBS build with a couple of awful looking wings tacked on. Sure, he may have some cool colors, and I do like this antenna that he has as a weapon, but it doesn't save him because he's just so bland. And here we have what will probably be the most controversial entry, Firelord. Firelord makes the list for two pretty major reasons. The first one being his arm support. It's designed in a way that really restricts movement. It can move forward just fine, but anything past here, which isn't even a completely relaxed stance, is always going to pop out of socket. They're also completely unnecessary. My personal theory as to why his arm supports ended up like this is because CCBS was much stronger than LEGO's designers anticipated it was going to be. The second big problem with the set are the legs. Not only do they have open pinholes on them, making them look bad, but they also have blue and tan pinholes sticking out of them. The legs also have these gaps right here, because LEGO decided to use a size 6 armor, which just comes over the size of the bone that they used. I wish we got this prototype version of Firelord that has a pretty complete looking set of legs and an arm support that looks like it would hold much better than what we got. Firelord might be a cool character, but this set is hot garbage. Eva Walker is the Hero Factory equivalent to a Star Wars battle pack, where you would only buy this thing for the minifigures and a handful of spare parts. This thing is awkward as hell to pose and maneuver due to its tripod design, because in order to get it to look like it's moving, you gotta move its front legs and its back legs forward, and it just doesn't look like something that would be able to walk on its own without someone just picking it up and sliding it. Also, the seat is attached to the back leg, meaning that this thing is even more awkward to pose. I can appreciate that LEGO tried doing something unique with this set, but it just really did not pan out. Fangs is a pretty crappy set. While these transparent armor pieces look pretty cool, the rest of the set really falls behind in many aspects. For some reason, LEGO decided to continuously use these 2008 Bionicle feet without updating their joints. Fangs also has these spears attached to his face, for some reason. The face itself also looks kinda bad. The open mouth exposes the ball joint inside, and the face itself has these weird buck teeth. But all of that is really nitpicking in comparison to his body. This just looks so unfinished, and in my opinion is unacceptable, and this by itself earns Fangs a spot on this list. Breakout Furno is kind of a mess of a set. Now I'll get the easy criticism out of the way. One hand, for some reason, but more scathing criticism would be his left arm, which is a giant chunk of silver, and if you don't count the tubes coming out of the scuba gear, it's the only bit of silver on the set. And the arm can't even bend at 90 degrees. That's as far as it bends. These tubes restrict arm movement and can cover his eyes if you don't pose him right. But I think the most unacceptable thing about Furno is he's the only $13 Breakout set to not have a back cover. And also, for some reason, LEGO put a transparent piece of armor on him that just sticks out and looks bad. Scarax is kind of a lame, under-armored basic CCBS set with an action feature that horrifically handicaps anything this set had going for it. During Brain Attack, LEGO decided to incorporate action features into most of their villains. While Dragon Balls turned out really cool, Scarax and another one that we'll see later on in this list did not turn out very great. Not only does this action feature leave this obnoxious bright red lever, but the feature itself is not really worth the sacrifice. this thing doesn't look good from most angles. Like, it looks alright from here, but the arms are single bone CCBS builds and the legs are just under armored. Joblight has always felt like a weird gimmick set instead of a fully realized action figure. My first big problem with the set is the fact that the jaw has this giant gap in it. The second problem is that this thing can't really decide if it wants to be a humanoid or if it wants to be a fish. So we have this weird fish man with no legs and human hands. I would go more in depth, but Joblight is just such a nothing set. The Surgeon Rocket Combat Machine just looks overall very unpolished. The entire build is filled with gaps, making the entire thing just look incomplete. The detachable jet, while cool in concept, doesn't really hold its own and is just kind of a crappy little side build. But if you remove that, then this thing looks way worse. It seriously just has a naked torso just slapped on top of it. The legs also have a lot of issues. The front legs look like they're missing a bit of armor, and the back legs just look like they come from a completely different set entirely. For something that's supposed to be one of the final big hurrahs of Hero Factory, saying this thing comes in short would be a massive understatement. Remember when I said Scarax's action feature kind of ruins the set? Bruiser got it so much worse. His big arm is comprised of one single Technic lift arm, so unless you're looking at it from any angle other than this, it looks bad. And while the novelty of the action feature is cool, it's not designed in a very secure way, and the arm will eventually just fall off if you continuously do that. But the bad action feature isn't the only reason Bruiser makes this list. His other arm is completely skinny and barren, and it really just sticks out in a bad way. His head also uses the bright green brain attack head, so at most angles, that bright green is going to pop through and completely break up the color scheme. I also think the gunmetal kind of hurts this set because Bruiser is supposed to be a mutated rock creature, but the gunmetal just kind of gives him a more artificial, robotic, metallic look. Also, if you look at Bruiser's official set art, you will see that there is no gunmetal gray, which is debatably false advertising. Bruiser is debatably one of the worst CCBS sets to ever be made, but the worst part about it is the fact that they gave my dog's name to an ugly rock monster. And in our runner-up spot is the Breeze Flea machine. Now, this horrible gap in these exposed ball joints would be enough to place this thing on this list, but what really cements it at number 2 is the action feature. This claw is too heavy to reliably flick off. Okay, bad example. Even if the claw did fire properly, the parts used to make it are too weak to actually hold in place while you crank this thing up and actually move it up as it's supposed to. All that combined with the awkward moving issues you have with the Eva Walker and the Breeze Flea machine earns its number 2 spot. And finally, we have number 1, all 6 of the 1.0 heroes. The first gigantic problem with these sets would be the limbs. Not only are they static, pre-bent one-part limbs, but they're brand new molds introduced with the 1.0 heroes that still use the 2008 Bionicle joints that break within a handful of uses. I would also like to point out that the Ben 10 limbs released the same year do not have that problem. These guys are practically clones of Avmatoran or the Bionicle Stars, which were some of the most disliked Bionicle sets during its original run. But the worst things about these sets from a toy perspective, and it's specifically an issue with these three, and you know exactly what I'm gonna say, it's these stupid hollow arms. Not only do these arm pieces look like they were molded to go over a regular arm, but this just looks so bad. This looks like a Chinese knockoff of an action figure instead of a professionally produced action figure from the biggest toy brand on the planet. These guys were so bad that they turned many people off of Hero Factory. I had a couple of friends back when Hero Factory first came out that completely dismissed the series because these guys were garbage. And they definitely deserve their #1 placement on this list. But that's gonna do it for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, leave a comment down below, tell me what you thought. Tell me to go fuck myself because I put Firelord on the list. But until next time, catch you later.